Hey everybody, welcome to Philly Film Brothers. Today we're talking about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that just came out on Disney+. Parts 1 and 2 are out, so be warned there will be spoilers in this little mini review of sorts.
Wait, we're gonna spoil it? We're gonna spoil whether or not Obi-Wan dies in this series?
Yes.
What? Yeah, spoilers for a prequel series that we already know the fates of all the characters in?
Yeah, I guess we'll get into the negative first. So I want to preface this. I really like the series so far. Like I'm enjoying it, and it's
it is
great.
Up there with Mandalorian.
I don't know about that yet. Mandalorian's really good, so I think we have to wait and see. I think it has potential to be.
Mandalorian was best. Unpopular opinion, Mandalorian was best before Baby Yoda, and then it kind of became the Baby Yoda show.
We're going to get a lot of hate for that.
No such thing as bad press. This show feels like what Mandalorian was in those first couple episodes.
Okay, fair enough.
Is what I'll say.
Well, I was going to say, as I was watching the first two episodes, I love that we have young Leia. Like, I think that kid's delightful, and I think Carrie Fisher would approve. I feel like Carrie Fisher would be like, oh, that's great, because I feel like the kid actor, and she's given a lot of big lines. I mean she's, and I get that's the point, like she's ahead of her time, but I'm saying the actor's really good. I was thinking, like, hey, it's a Star Wars show, we got to have a cute kid in this.
You do. I literally, though, so obviously huge props to that actor. Very, very big shoes to fill, not just in terms of portraying Leia, but, in a way she's our young Padme. And that's kind of what Obi-Wan says, like, oh, you remind me of someone.
Yeah, and that moment was really sweet, because you kind of think about, Obi-Wan and Padme were friends, and that was hard for him. To lose her.
Yes, according to some Reddit fan theories, they were more than friends.
Right. Oh boy. Now that's gonna go.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. There is a particular meme I love. It's that was like the most unrealistic thing about the prequels is that Padme chose Anakin when Obi-Wan was right there. Because how could you not?
Well, Obi-Wan said, like, hey, I'm your father for this, and I don't know. Maybe that was a nod to the internet.
Just fandom. One hello there from Ewan McGregor. How are you not swooning? Anyone, even me.
Oh gosh, yeah. So, all that being said, and I don't know if this is an issue that they can get around at all, but I kind of felt the same way about the Clone Wars, in the sense that we know the fate of all these characters. So, like, we see Uncle Owen has, I don't know if these are lightsabers. We'll get into that in a little bit. But we see Owen has his life threatened. Obviously, Leia has her life threatened. Obi-Wan has his life threatened.
And we know that...
We know how they die. We know how they die. We've seen it happen. So I think there is a little bit of the stakes are not as high, I think, just for that. I think if you were coming in brand new and watching this in order, I think it would work. I think it would totally work. And maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Maybe that's, that was kind of George Lucas' vision.
So, similarly to the prequels, that was an issue. But I think it worked better for the prequels, because the prequels weren't about knowing... The prequels weren't about the twist of Anakin turning to the dark side. The prequels were watching the tragedy of how he turns.
Uh-huh.
Whereas here, we're kind of in the middle. And as much as I did like these episodes, there is a little bit of prequelitis in there. Some of it intentional, some of it not. Prequelitis being a disease I define as when a series or a movie prequel feels like it has to shoehorn in later references, or when it creates continuity issues later. Like, for example, and I made a meme about this.
Oh, so we know it's legit.
Exactly. The memes are the currency of our time. When Leia made her message, in A New Hope, and she says, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, my only hope." At no point does he mention, "Hey, remember that time you saved me before?" Yeah. I feel like if this event took place, that would be something you would bring up, and it's an example of what happens with prequels. There's other ones that are kind of, I don't know if I'm just reading too much into it, if this is intentional, but like when Reva says when Inquisitor Reva says to Owen, "Oh, you think you can protect your family and your farm from us?" And it's like,
wink, wink.
No, he can't. And I can't be the only one who thought this when Leia's feuding with her cousin, and he's like, "You know what the difference is between us, cousin?" And I'm thinking, she's not going to get blown up in 10 years.
So you just went to a dark place.
Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
No, literally, I watched this, and I can't help it. I just watched it thinking, how many memes can I make out of these 2 episodes?
Right. I have to say, it is. I can't. I don't know why. Jimmy Smits, is that his name?
Yes. Bail Organa.
Delightful. I was so happy to see him again, and it's really cool to see him. I think between him and Uncle Owen and Ewan McGregor, Joel Egerton, right? It's really great to see these prequel actors getting more to do and kind of building on those performances. And I thought, Bail Organa, I love that he has, obviously he's Leia's favorite. And I think that's really cool to see how close they are. And it makes it even more heartbreaking knowing that, in 10 years, like the whole planet's going to be gone.
And that's what I'm talking about is, in that way, I think that it is all the more kind of poignant that we do know the end of it, because it's like this series is showing us Alderaan and how beautiful and amazing it is. So it makes that gut punch hit harder when Tarkin blows it up.
In that case, I think I like that part of the prequelness of it that because I think we've seen Alderaan briefly. Like I think in episode 3 we saw it briefly a couple times, but this is like we're actually seeing it, and I like that it feels like what 1970s people thought the future was going to look like.
They were so optimistic.
They really were. But do you know what I mean? Like that aesthetic, I can't really describe it, but it fits.
That
like
very that like Metropolis, the 1920s would be Metropolis inspired vibe of the future, where everything's very sleek, very shiny, very
But like I buy that. I buy that, Carrie Fisher's Leia Organa lived there later. Like I believe that. And I think
and you see why she is the way she is coming from, growing up with Bail, her saying, "I don't want to be a senator," and him saying, "That's why you'll be a good one."
Which is a great line. I mean, especially now. I mean, it's a really great line, and knowing, I thought it was cool. I mean, look, introducing a young version of one of the big 3, not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing at all, but I think so far it's paying off. But let's talk about some of the other characters. So, Kumail Nanjiani.
I am just so we've both been fans of Kumail ever since The Big Sick.
Great flick.
I do not like romantic comedies. That is one of the best romantic comedies ever made.
It's a really good one, yeah.
And I'm happy for him that in the last year, he is now part of Marvel and Star Wars, like 2 of the biggest franchises ever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's looking, I'm really curious to see where it's going to go with him. I think I hope they don't just make him the comic relief. I know he's a stand-up comic, but I'd like to see kind of more done with him. Maybe kind of closer to like Bill Burr in The Mandalorian, where like, he's funny, but like there's a deeper pathos.
And that's the thing is, ultimately, don't we know that all these other Jedi have to die?
So, okay, that's
or
what
Jedi
I about.
helpers.
Is he a Jedi or is he a fake Jedi? Because I feel like that wasn't totally clear.
He is a Jedi helper. he is sympathetic to their cause, but I do not believe he is a Jedi himself.
That's what I thought.
That said, there's a line that bothered me only a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Apparently some of the Inquisitors are Jedi who turn to the dark side.
Which I thought was interesting, because that's a bit retconning.
That's a huge... It's retconning, and it's a huge can of worms that I'm intrigued by, but I'm also thinking, like... I thought that, like, they were all wiped out. Was, like... And now I'm thinking, you know, were there parts after Order 66 went out where some Jedi were like, hey, I'll join you? Like, how did that play out?
Well, see, that I think is interesting. And I know that not all the Jedis died because, I mean, that's why they have the Inquisitors, is to hunt the Jedi. So, like, yeah, killed most of them, Order 66. But
and I thought Vader was leading them, according to Obi-Wan in New Hope.
Well, he was leading them, but he wasn't, like, it's clear, Reva makes clear that Vader's her boss.
Is Vader?
You have to understand, it's a big galaxy. You can't be everywhere at once. So this is
it's a big galaxy, but he never thinks to look back at his home. Unless the only way I buy that is he hates sand so much that they're like, hey, listen, Lord Vader, we're going through, we're searching the galaxy, we're hunting the Jedi and all that. Next up on our list is Tatooine. Do you want to No! All right, cool. Tell you what, Vader. I'll take Reva. We'll go to Tatooine, so you don't got to deal with the sand. Just it's cool. It's cool. I imagine that's what happened, or that Vader just came up behind like Reva's cubicle and said, listen, if you could go to Tatooine so I don't have to, that would be great.
That would be great, yeah. The other thing that I was kind of thrown off by, like, so a big revelation at the end of part 2 is that Anakin's alive, which I feel like it's been 10 years. I know that, obviously Obi-Wan has been in hiding, but, like, wasn't Darth Vader known by that point as being, like the big villain of the galaxy? Do you know what I mean?
He was. I chalked that up, and I'm giving the series the benefit of the doubt. I chalked that up to, we've always known that Tatooine is very outer rim. They even mentioned that when they show up there. That them searching on Tatooine is kind of like not quite a Hail Mary, but it's them just being extra thorough. Because even in the prequels, the Republic didn't reach Tatooine. So right. I don't really think the Empire does either. I think Tatooine is outside of their territory, and it's run by gangsters. So it's one of those situations where the Empire will show up and they'll look around, and the Hutts are smart enough to not fight them and just let them, if they want to find Jedi and kill them, sure, whatever. Just keep business going. But I think that being that far out, they're not privy to what's going on in the rest of the galaxy. So it is for that reason and that reason alone I buy maybe Obi-Wan not being aware of that. But someone like Bail Organa, very aware of it, because, Darth Vader's probably at the annual State of the Empire addresses that Palpatine gives.
He's just standing behind Palpatine, or sitting behind Palpatine, like...
He just awkwardly stands there and then claps when Palpatine says a point that he agrees with.
Yeah.
And then, refuses to stand when Bail Organa makes a good point.
Right. I can buy that. I think you have to do that. I mean, in the prequelitis type of thing, when you're dealing with that, like, you have to have some stakes and some emotional stakes. And I think seeing, we've seen Obi-Wan and Vader when Obi-Wan died, but we haven't seen them, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan and Hayden Christensen's Vader since episode 3. So I think that's going to be a big emotional thing. I mean, I'll tell you that last shot of Anakin in the bath, I guess we'll say, the medical tube,
Space jacuzzi.
Space jacuzzi, if you will. I was pretty chilling, and I like that you could tell, like, oh, this is him. Like, this is the guy.
As Hayden Christensen.
You know, and I'm very curious to see what they're going to do, because it's a tough situation, because you sort of believe, at least people that have been around since the beginning, that, you know, Darth Vader, like, goes to sleep in that suit. Like, that's him. Like, he takes a shower in that suit. He eats his breakfast in that suit. Like, he's kind of, like, stuck in the suit. That's kind of what I gather.
He goes to the bathroom in that suit.
Goes to the bathroom in that suit.
It's awkward.
It's awkward. But I know, like, in Rogue One, they showed him in that chamber as well. You know, but I'm really curious, because they're making a big thing about Hayden being back, which I think is great. But I'm just wondering how that interaction is going to be, if we're going to actually see, like, a version of Vader that isn't voiced by James Earl Jones, that's just, like...
That's just Hayden.
That's just Hayden.
And Hayden.
And how's that going to be done? That's a tough thing to do, because it's such an iconic villain that you take him out of the suit. Like, we see what happens when you take him out of the suit. He dies, right? So...
I think I think it's one of those things that... You know, he always has to be, because even in his space jacuzzi, he has a breathing apparatus.
So maybe as long as he has the breathing thing, he's okay.
I think it's just he always needs a breathing apparatus, and, you know, I also think that the major reason he dies at the end of Return of the Jedi is not necessarily anything to do with his suit, but because the Emperor was keeping him alive. He was using the power he talked about to unnaturally keep Anakin alive. Because he should have died.
Right. Yeah, true.
From his injuries. And I think Palpatine has been keeping him alive for all these years. I do want to talk about, I know we haven't really talked too much about our titular character, Obi-Wan. This is not the Obi-Wan we know from Episode 3, nor is it the Obi-Wan we know in Episode 4. It's kind of like sad, broken, defeated Obi-Wan in between. And it's like, you get it.
Yeah, you get it. And you know what? I think in a lot of ways it validates Episode 8's Luke Skywalker. Where, yeah, like, if the whole galaxy, like, you know, if you lost a battle that big, of course you would go into hiding and not want to be bothered. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of everybody, that's the thing to do. You just go into hiding and shame. You figure the Jedi are very proud, so, you know.
Mm-hmm. And not just that, but kind of living with not just the loss of all the Jedi, but the fact that, you know, I trained Anakin, and Anakin was, you know, I know at that point he doesn't know he's alive, but he knows the role Anakin played in the Jedi Purge. Mm-hmm. Just like Luke feels guilt for, I created Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And he's even reminded of it. Obi-Wan is, you know, when I love that one. It's kind of a random throwaway moment, but I loved when he saw that clone trooper.
Yeah, that's right.
Who was begging, you know, with the sign that said, you know, we'll kill Jedi for food. And it was interesting because, number one, there was like a tense reaction, like, the last time I saw the clones, they were trying to kill me.
Yeah.
But it also kind of raises a really interesting point that isn't really brought up is, you know, what became of all the clones? And was that, you know, they got a raw deal basically being, they're child soldiers.
Yeah.
And then they're just cast aside and left to rot. And it just, it makes the Emperor even more evil than he already is.
Well, I know there's a lot of side stories with I think in the Clone Wars, and there's a show called The Bad Batch, which is I believe deals with some of the clones' issues, and I haven't got into that yet. I mean, it sounds interesting, but I mean, they're people. I mean, they were just people that were trained from birth to follow orders without hesitation. And I know at some point the Empire replaced them with the Stormtroopers. Like, we didn't see any clone troopers in the, you know, by this time, 10 years later. So it's, you know, I guess they got too old for it.
I think my theory is twofold. One, I think at a certain point the clones age out, especially because they were given that rapid. Remember, they were given the accelerated aging, which means in 10 years they were 20.
Right. Yeah.
I think that probably continues, and they age faster because you saw he looked like a very old man.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think, to your point about the Bad Batch and some of the clones who disobeyed and went against Order 66, I think the Emperor was like, well, screw this. With the amount of money it costs, we're writing these massive checks to Kamino, and, he's a fiscal guy. He's got to keep the Empire running. He's got a budget. Yeah. And he's like, look, it's costing us this much money for clones, and they're not everything that we were promised. You know what? Let's just indoctrinate people, let's brainwash people, and let's just kidnap people and conscript them. Because it's a lot of work to do that, but it's cheaper.
Propaganda, cheaper and more effective.
Exactly. And I'm imagining Palpatine having this conversation with, like, the Empire's treasurer in his office in Coruscant. Like, Your Majesty, this costing us billions of credits every year to door these clones, and it's not worth it. We could, and then we can sell that idea to the citizens, and hey, we just saved you money in your taxes. We slashed this big program.
It's eerie, the similarities to regular politics. I know that the prequels got a lot of crap for the politics, but I
liked the politics of it. It was interesting to me.
See, I feel like they're doing just the right amount now. Like, I feel like in the sequels, they're like, we're not doing politics at all. We're just going to show it like once, blow up the planet. Like, I think they missed what people... They just thought, okay, whatever the prequels are, we're going to do the opposite of. What I like about the Obi-Wan show is that I've always been fascinated by the period between episode 3 and episode 4, and we're finally getting that, which, is kind of bringing in the best elements of the prequels and episode 4. And I think it's really cool to, this is sort of the year of redemption for early 2000s actors that maybe got some crap before. I mean, I'm thinking of like... Andrew Garfield made his big comeback as Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man. Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. Like, hey, like, we really want to see these guys back together again, because it's, I don't know if it's more nostalgia or just, I think in light
of... I think it's just looking back, the internet, we were harsh on them. And not to the people who have their issues, but... So recently, there have been a bunch of videos on YouTube, like promotion stuff, of Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, like playing, agree, disagree games, just like on talk shows and all that. And I gotta tell you, watching it feels really wholesome, just like seeing them together again. And they were talking about, like, the prequels are underrated, and Hayden Christensen said, he's like, back then, in that earlier stage of the internet, it was mostly message boards. It wasn't widespread social media. And, the most extreme opinions were the loudest voices. And I think it gave way to people think, oh, everyone hates the prequels, when a lot of people didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fascinating phenomenon, kind of like this groupthink kind of thing. And you got to hand it to George Lucas. Like, he, back then everybody roasted him for, oh, your movie's just in front of blue screen and green screen. Now everybody does it. Oh, you've got a fully CGI character. Everybody does it now. I mean, the guy was ahead of his time.
I mean, Attack of the Clones remains the first movie that was ever completely shot on digital. Now, I will die on the hill that I still think film looks better than digital, but there is no denying that Lucas was very much ahead of the curve and the technology and saw this is where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's good to it's good that these guys are getting their victory lap now, and I think now, I love the recap. The recap that was at the beginning of part one was really well edited together, and just makes you. This whole series, I think, is going to put the prequels and make people appreciate them even more, which I think is great. So. But yeah, so we're going to wrap it up today. That was a lot. Hopefully we'll be back next time. If there's stuff to talk about, we'll be back here. So we'll catch you next time.
What are you talking about? It's Star Wars. There's always stuff
There's always something. DorkDaily.com.
I'm sorry. Can I point out that Leia was kidnapped by needles from Back to the Future and how weird that was for me, but also fitting?
How's it hanging, McFly? Yeah.
Like, could you just picture him calling Marty, "Hey, McFly, we got a job. You want in?" "I don't know, needles. It's illegal." You know, what's his name? The boss. Was it Fitz?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I think it was monitor.
Yeah.
I pictured that when I saw that.
I didn't catch that. You caught that. I didn't catch it till you mentioned it. I'm like, oh, that's
it's
cool.
It's a very recognizable face and voice.
Yeah, I mean, he's aged, but, you know, yeah, that's the time will do that. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Check out DorkDaily.com. Check out HalloweenYearRound.com, right?
If you're a fan of horror, yes, HalloweenYearRound.com, my site if you like horror stuff.
Yes, and we will see you next time. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.